Hello, this is Maurice Calhoun, the Hope Dealer. Amazing grace shall always be my song of praise. For it was grace that brought my liberty. I do not know just why he came to love me so. He looked beyond my faults and saw my needs. Amazing grace shall always be my song of praise. For it was grace that brought my liberty. And I do not know just why he came to love me so. He looked beyond my faults and saw my needs. I must tell Jesus. I must tell Jesus. I cannot bear these burdens alone. I must tell Jesus. I must tell Jesus. Jesus can help me. Jesus alone. Hello, this is Maurice Calhoun, the Hope Dealer. I woke up a few hours ago thinking about hope, and I thought of something that represents hope. Honorably, optimistically, with purpose, and passionate and positive expectations. So, honorable, optimistic, with positive expectations. So, let me kind of think about that a little bit. So, honorable optimism. That means you're thinking positive. And you're thinking positive from an honorable perspective, from an honorable foundation. In other words, it doesn't mean that everything is going well in your life. It doesn't mean that you don't have some issues. It doesn't mean that you don't have some worries and some concerns. But it says with honor. You're approaching life with optimism. And then you're pairing that with positive expectations. In other words, even though you got some worries and concerns, even though your kids might be acting up, even though your job is acting crazy, even though your light bill is due, you're honorable in your optimism. And then you're pairing that with positive expectations. In other words, God, I'm counting on you. I'm going to give this over to you. I'm going to give the crazy job over to you. I'm going to give you my kids over to you because they were yours before they were mine. I'm going to give my mortgage payment over to you. I'm going to give my light bill over to you. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to take 1.5 steps, but then I'm looking for you to take 2. That's what hope means. Honorable optimism paired with positive expectations. Oh God, I'm counting on you. It's turning around for me. Sooner or later, it's turning around for me. You're going to work this out in my favor because I'm counting on you. Oh, sooner or later, it'll turn in my favor. It's turning around for me. It's turning around for your family. It's turning around for your children. Our children are depressed. The leading cause of death of our adolescents is now suicide. We got an unemployment crisis in the Black community. Worse than it's ever been since the Great Depression and then since slavery. It's turning around for us because if we just stay strong. Because in the 29th letter to Jeremiah, he said, "For I know the plans I have for you. They're plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope and a future." I had 3 business engagements to do over the last 2 weeks. Had an engagement in Danbury, Connecticut that was going to be lucrative. That is still going to be lucrative. I had an engagement to go to in Shreveport, Louisiana. I felt a calling to go to the funeral of those 8 kids. I had another calling with a coworker to go to Houston, Texas. But then I had another calling to support a coworker friend of mine with her family and her son. I went to the coworkers, dealt with a very traumatic issue. But a blessing was there because of what I saw as a traumatic issue, but God saw it as a holy issue. I got home the other day, but one of the things that was bothering me during the consideration of all of these engagements was I had a stomach virus. It was a very severe stomach virus. My stomach couldn't hold anything. Was going to the bathroom every few minutes. Didn't feel like a drive to the coworker's house. Then I said, okay, I'll drive, but I'll rent a car. So I get to the Avis rental car agency and they say, "Hey, Mr. Calvin, we only have a SUV and it's an EV, it's an electric vehicle." Well, I had never driven an electric vehicle before. I said, okay, cool. Just show me how to drive it and everything. I'll be okay. I wasn't thinking about the fact that on the route I would take through the country of Alabama, that there would be no or very few charging stations. So on the trip there, I realized that the rental car was not fully charged when I rented it. It only had 73 miles charge. Well, I got up into this country town of Alabama, a little bit north of a place called Oxford, Alabama. And all of the signals on the car started going off that it was about to go out of charge. So I stopped. I was in this real country town with a bunch of 2-lane roads, a bunch of country roads, and a bunch of pickup trucks, and a Mayberry looking gas station. And I was stopping everywhere, asking everyone, where is there a charging station? I went up into a neighborhood and I said, this doesn't look too good. I better turn around. So I stopped and saw two ladies on a corner, and I said, ma'am, I need a charging station. They said, well, you just go down to the fork in the road and you turn right and there'll be some charging stations. I said, okay. So I got there. And then I saw a sign for a Walmart. So I charged it up. Whoa, I felt so relieved. Then I went into the Walmart to get some ice because I wanted to buy some drinks and put it in my cooler. And I told a lady of my experience of being in that little country town for the first time. And she said, yeah, we're nice people here. She said, what you doing in here? I said, I'm on the way to a friend's house. She said, well, when you come back through, why don't you just drop by here and we can go to church together? We can have dinner together. I said, wow, what an experience north of Oxford, Alabama. And I told her when I was leaving, I said, I think I want to move here. I want to move here and buy a farm or something. She said, come on down. You can join our church. An old white lady said, you can join our church. So I continued on to the friend's house, had a great time, a holy time, even though there was a traumatic experience, but we had a holy time because God showed up. Well, then when I got home, I realized why God showed up and why I had to go to the friend's house, the coworker's house. I had a doctor's appointment on yesterday. I got home on Monday. I returned the car. I returned it to the same agency, but I couldn't find a charging station anywhere downtown Atlanta that worked. So I said to the gentleman who I was returning the car to, I said, sir, I could not find a charging station. I told him about my experience north of Oxford, Alabama. He said, I'm not going to charge you because the car isn't fully charged. I said, but when I got it, it wasn't fully charged. He said, that's okay. I'm not going to charge you. I said, wow, okay. You had a blessed time, it seems like. I said, yeah. Well, the blessing didn't show up until Tuesday when I got to the doctor's office. I saw my doctor's nursing assistant for the first time in months. So I say, hey there, what you doing back here? How did your surgery go? Well, it went well. While I was in surgery and when I got out, I found out that my husband had died of a coma, a diabetic coma. She said, I was wheeled down to where he was, and I saw the end of his life. She told me a little bit about what he was going through. And I told her to close the door. She said, but the doctor's about to come in. I said, no, the doctor's already in the room. Asked her how was she and her kids doing. She started breaking. I started talking about my poetry. I started talking about all my writings. I started talking about one of my latest sermonic poems called Drowning to Being Drawn Out. I found out why I had to go to the coworker's house. Jesus was on the way to Jairus' house. When he saw the crowd and went up into the crowd, lots of people out there, but there was a woman in the crowd who had some type of hematology, maybe AIDS, maybe sickle cell, maybe some other type of blood-borne disease, maybe even osteomyelitis, which is an infection of the bone marrow. He asked Simon Peter, he said, somebody touched me. Who touched me? Simon Peter said, how can I tell you who touched you with all these people out here? Jesus says, somebody touched me because the virtue left my body. All my blood, my sweat, my tears left my body. Somebody touched me. Oh, I got touched by my doctor's nursing assistant. She finally left the room and the doctor came in. And he said, Maurice, it looks like you're all clear from osteomyelitis. You've been through a miracle. Your life was saved. Yes, you did have a partial amputation. But look at you now. You're about to graduate from physical therapy. You're almost back to running now, so I started laughing. I said, sir, I did run the other day when I went to the coworker's house. Have a good day, team. Goodbye.